Welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we shall be taking a look at functions versus function expression in a greater detail. In the last lesson, I talked about function expression, which was the theme of the last lesson, and in this particular lesson, we'll take a deep dive into it. Now, in JavaScript, function and function expression refer to different ways of defining functions. So, function as a regular way of defining function involves a standalone declaration where you are declaring a function. There are different syntax and how they are handled. But function expression is mostly assigning a function expression to a variable. That is function expression. Now, a function declaration or simply a function is defined using the function keyword. When you want to declare a regular function, you call the function keyword, then the name of the function, if there are parameters, which is optional, and then a code block of what is to be executed. Let's take a look at what is on the screen. You can see a simple function to add two numbers, A and B, and then it returns A plus B. This is a simple function declaration. Now, function declaration are hosted to the top of their scope. This means you can call a function before it is defined in the code. So let's simply take a look at this example. Let's let's so equals at 4 and 5, and then let me just come down and now make that function, and then I can output the value of my son. Now you can see this. So normal function declaration allows hosting, which means that you can call that value, you can call the output before it is even declared, just like what you did now. So function declaration are hosted to the top of their scope, which means that you can call a function before it is defined in the code. Now, there are some things to note. Semicolon are used to separate executable JavaScript statements. uh, in JavaScript, if you are a beginner, it is recommended that you always include a semicolon at the end of every statement in JavaScript, but it's optional. Regardless, your code will still work. But for as a good practice when learning JavaScript, it is a recommended thing to do. Since the function declaration is not an executable statement, it is not common to end it with a semicolon. So since the function declaration is not an executable statement, which means that a function on its own is not executable. That means is, now take a look at this function now. Without here, without this, it doesn't execute on its own. We can see that the value has disappeared from the screen. So it's not common to end it with a semicolon, which means that here at the end of this curly braces, you might not put a semicolon because it's not something that uh, executes once it is declared. Now, function expressions. A function expression is defined by assigning an anonymous function to a variable. I'm sure we are familiar with this particular example, just as we've seen in the last lesson. Now, there are some things to note about function expressions as well. Function expressions are commonly used to create anonymous functions. So, for functions without name, they are called anonymous functions. Anonymous functions are functions without a name. A function expression can also be a named function assigned to a variable. For example, you can see the example below that there is a function keyword added to that function expression. Or just know that they are used to create anonymous function mostly. That's the purpose of function expressions in JavaScript. Function expressions are not hoisted in the same way as function declaration. They are created when the execution reaches their definition and cannot be called before that point. So what this is basically saying is what we did with this function declaration now. If we try this with function expression, let's take a look. Const so equals function a b return asterisk P. And this is because this is the same name. Let me see this out. Okay, let's say something like value, something this way. And then let me pass this as value. Now, you can see that nothing is showing on my screen. Let's inspect and see what error JavaScript is complaining about. You can see add is not defined because we are trying to call a function that has not been defined. So function expression in JavaScript does not support hoisting like the regular function declaration. Now, the key differences between function and function expression are these. Number one, syntax. Function declaration require a name. Function expression can be anonymous, which means that function expression can exist without a name, but function declaration always requires a name. Hoisting. Function declaration are hoisted. Function expression are not. I've explained the concept of hoisting. Flexibility. Function declaration offer more flexibility in how and where they are used. Now, function expressions offer high flexibility and are widely used in JavaScript for various purposes. And you see a lot more function expression in the following areas. So when you start working or learning about these core areas in JavaScript, you see function expressions used a lot. Number one is callbacks, passive function as arguments to other functions, such as event listener or asynchronous operations. Enclosures. Function expression creates closures, which allow functions to remember and access variables from their continuous code. Arrow function. The concise arrow function syntax is a modern way of writing function expressions. Then immediately invoke function expression, IIFES. Functions that run as soon as they are defined, often used to create private codes and avoid global variable conflict. So these are areas where you see function expression used a lot in JavaScript. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next.